Hello everybody, Badmass here. Oh, wait, hang on. Looks like a redo is in order. We'll get to this later. Goodness me, libertarianism really has changed in the past few years, hasn't it? I remember back in my day, the movement could be personified as Jeffrey Tucker with unicorn wings. But 2 years later, it feels a lot more like Hopper. Delightfully devilish Hopper. But nonetheless, I think it's worth noting that there are many libertarians who aren't like the latter. And there's an argument that's put about that I keep on hearing every single day.
A point that I'd like to make out that some of people have accused me of being is an anarcho-capitalist. I don't think that I've ever stated that I'm an anarcho-capitalist. If I have, then I apologise, I'm not. I'm a voluntarist, which means that anything voluntary, it's okay by me. So, you want capitalism? Yeah, cool, go for it. You want socialism? Yeah, cool, go for it. As long as it's voluntary, don't care.
Yes, that's me from January 2015. And I made that argument in the dying days of my capitalist phase. And based on experiences I had back then, I can ascertain that these people have either used up all other arguments, or think that this is just one that is completely infallible. But what about this argument? Can a capitalist country live side by side with a communist one and we'll just figure out things peacefully as to which one is the best? Well, firstly, and this is something that libertarians really just need to understand, largely speaking, we're not in the business of just getting rid of an existing apparatus to allow people to voluntarily make their own. All systems have certain effects that will benefit certain people above others. Simply giving people the choice over one system or the other isn't really effective change in my mind. Ancapistan as it will exist will still have hierarchical relations between owners and have-nots. It will still have private property. It will still have capitalist control over the MOP. And that, in my opinion, is enough of an excuse to go over and invade Ancapistan and liberate the workers. Even if they choose to stay in that society by their own free will, do we allow a child to have sex with an adult as long as they consent? We know the powers of indoctrination, and the propaganda of capitalism is basically in our blood by now. And this is the reason why we don't simply talk about voluntary interactions alone. We have to talk about being informed on these issues, and have the debate as to whether or not it's immoral. There's a reason why people have negative views about socialism today compared with the past. And this idea about indoctrination, by the way, has pretty much universal appeal when talking about other matters, but when it comes to ANCAPs, well, it's just slightly avoided. But let's just take this example at face value, and hypothesize something that might happen in the actual reality, by paraphrasing in part from Graeber's Parable of the Divided Island. There's an island by the sea. Both sides have different political ideologies, communist and capitalist, but they decide to put their differences to rest and divide the island into two. Ancapistan in the north, and Ancompton in the south. Ancapistan has primarily hierarchical relations between property owners and working class, whereas Ancompton is made up of horizontal organisation at its core and rejects private property. But now here comes the hypothetical problem. A few weeks later, the bosses and landlords suddenly discover that lots of people are leaving to go and live in Ancompton. People in fields like sewage workers, cleaners, assembly line workers. Now, why is this? Because as it turns out, most of them don't enjoy working shit hours with little autonomy, with virtually no decision making over their life beyond how much money they have and how many skills they have. So they'll find, seeing as they aren't getting a great deal out of this, that they'd be better off going to places where their personhood would be better valued. But now the capitalists and the labour aristocrats are in a predicament. They have to keep to their freedom of association and NAP. And if they keep going on like this, then they're going to lose all the people who are necessary to supporting their cushy lives. I mean, how are they going to shit? But, on the other hand, if they allow good conditions for their workers, not only would they lose a lot of their capital, but they'd eventually have to simply bring down the pale so much that they'd basically be Ancompton light. And this is the funny thing about capitalists. Bosses are considered the holy ones, the job creators. Yet when the workers stop working, they soon realize that they're not so special, that these guys will always be more valuable over the proletarians any day of the week. Now that's one scenario that could happen, but frankly I think there's an even darker one that could be very likely, given in part what we've learned from things like business practice today and the rise of the alt-right. They can't adapt, and they can't just die out, so instead, they control. So this is what could potentially happen. They decide to stop technically competing and instead collude to try and stop workers from going away. ANCAPs often say that collusion wouldn't occur, but this situation is one that calls for drastic measures. This could be large amounts of propaganda convincing people that communism equals death. Instructions in schools to make children know this from a young age would be very, very effective. Censoring their information to communist literature. They're still well within property relations at this point. They're not violating the NEP yet. But what if workers are still leaving? Well, that might call for a Pinochet. It might entail much harsher contract laws from the beginning, basically binding people to their positions. If people try and escape, borders would be firmly drawn and enforced. They wouldn't be stopping people from getting in, they'd be stopping people from getting out. And if that still doesn't work, if they've exhausted all of their efforts, then that eventually means war. In order for capitalism to stay, it cannot have dissent. And at times when capitalism is failing, fascism tends to come in its place. Of course, it is worth noting that this situation only occurs purely in theory, not in practice. Capitalists would realize communism as a threat to their standing and progress with destruction before any of these situations happened. This scenario, if you haven't guessed already, is basically where we are today. Capitalism will not allow its workers to win. This is precisely why the USA never allowed communism to spread in any form. Not because it was a massive, horrible machine that killed 1 billion people and the Yanks were the holy ones coming to save them, but because it was actually showing people in the poorest, muddiest, most horrible parts of the world that a better society might be possible. And to be honest, you can't really blame them. No matter what your leftist views are, anything is better than this. And so you get the inevitable destruction of your principles. Not simply because you never had them, but because, as Econ 101 says, people respond to incentives. For the workers, that's a better life. For the capitalists, that's preserving theirs. People are formed by the environments and conditions they're in, and that is why you cannot have two systems living side by side with completely contradictory standards. There's a strong liberal idea planted into many of our heads that the best ideas always win out eventually, and that you just have to peacefully debate and experiment with them until people just make up their minds. The entirety of history says the opposite. And this is the reason why I feel many young libertarians are switching to more aerial pursuits, because they've realized the communists aren't obeying their ideas, and they will not obey it in Ancapistan. As of such, non-aggression changes from youthful euphoria about property rights into using aggression to preserve the NAP. Well, that's my analogy anyway. Freedom is not free, so the saying goes, it must be defended. Whatever basis for freedom this is. So I hope that this video reaches some of the more, let's say, Tucker-esque libertarians. And to the other ones, get on the fucking meat rack. So you're probably wondering by now, what is with the change in animations all of a sudden? Well, they're not done by me. This is all thanks to an animator called Lacking Saint, and I suggest you definitely go check out his channel with animations on there. That is an order from Libcom HQ, not a request. But seriously, go check out his channel. There's some great animations there. You'll love it.
Man,
Open face sandwich.
that was decisive.
Fuck yourself. So the music you are listening to right now is called Anarchie Vaincra by, I don't know who it's by. It's a French song. J'adore la français. I mean, my dad tried to teach me French. He was like fluent in it when I was a kid, but you know, I didn't really learn it that much. Kind of wish I did, but yeah, well, c'est la vie. Yeah, if anyone can teach me French, that'd be great. But yeah, well, I've babbled on for too long now. So yeah, you know the name of the song, so you don't need to write down the comment section, do you? Yeah, I don't need to go and tell like 5 people, do I? No, you know the song, Anarchie Vaincra. Yeah. Oh, you motherfucker. Oh yes, and by the way, if you're a subscriber to the channel Sean and Jen, then I ask you to go over there right now and destroy Sean, so that I may become Bad Mouse and Jen, destroyer of worlds! I'm trying, okay? The H-bomb's out of the country. I need to do something to unite the left.